Hey, bestie, and welcome to this episode of the Plobcast. Just a quick reminder before we get into it that this podcast is for adults only. I need to greatly apologize to everyone. I know I heavily advertised the interview with Hayden that I did. So, me and him both have been posting about it. I recorded it last Monday for Thursday's podcast, right? And then it went really smoothly. So I thought, oh, no big deal. I'll just, whenever Thursday comes around, when I have time, because I was having a really busy week, when Thursday comes around, I'll just convert it over in MP3, add an intro to it, upload it. No big deal, right? Yeah, wrong. I'm fucking stupid. Thursday comes around, I go to convert it to MP3, that way I can upload it to Podbean. And it informs me that none of the audio worked properly. You could see him talking, like the little things lighten up and everything. So you know he's talking. No sounds coming. I have no idea what happened. We didn't use, so this time we used Discord instead of a Google Meet call like we did before for the other interview. And yeah, I don't know what happened settings wise. We're going to have to fix that. I do plan on rescheduling that with him. But that episode was actually ironically was about autism in the community and how to, as a neurodivergent person, explore. And also, we had a lot of plob stories. He was talking about this one plob in particular, and it was great. And then, yeah. But that does bring me to today's topic. If you have not seen the con plob that recently happened, that plob has been flob, sorry, has been going viral, and we're gonna get into that. So the irony in this is we had just gotten off the call. Like, I made a video right after because I was like, nobody's gonna believe me. Because we had just gotten off the call talking about autism in the community, and the plobs that try to use autism as an excuse for being shitty to people when autism has nothing to do with it. And oh my gosh, we were literally having this discussion, and I go to sit down after this call, and I open up my phone, and the very first thing I see is some Christian wannabe doing just that. So, if you are unaware of what happened a couple weekends ago, because I guess by the time I post this, it won't be last weekend anymore. But a couple weekends ago, Zach Aguilera. I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but he is a voice actor for Genshin Impact, Demon Slayer, the main character in Demon Slayer. He also voices for Fire Emblem. He's a pretty popular voice actor, very talented young man. He had a stalker. He had a stalker, and more and more has came out about this. This has been a repetitive issue with this blob going full stalker. Now, here's the thing: is as an autistic person myself, been diagnosed since I was a kid. I've had hyperfixations. I've had voice actors that I've adored because they do characters that I love. I mean, I've met Eric Stewart several times. I've met Eric Vale. I know it's ironic. I always end up like I have a type apparently. It's the villain that's voice actor's name's Eric. I don't even mean to do that. Like, people know that I am such a Shigaraki simp that I have Eric Vale for my birthday a couple years ago. It's actually about 3 years ago. I have a voice message sent from him on video where he recorded a happy birthday for me in Shigaraki's voice using my name and everything. And I put it in a Build-A-Bear, and I still have a copy of the video. I'm decently known as the Shigaraki simp. There's also a lot of small businesses that know me because they know if they make something Shigaraki, I'm buying it. And before that, it was Seto Kaiba when I was a kid. Seto Kaiba obsessed as a child. And I met Eric Stewart several times. But here's the thing, is I will never cross that line, though. I will never do something to make a voice actor uncomfortable. I will never go stalker. I will never go to their hotel. I will never get so obsessed that, like, security had to address this woman multiple times. So in the initial video, we see she's talking about how hotel security had already talked to her the night before. She'd already gotten kicked out of there. And she said, oh, well, don't worry, my dad took the blame for all of that. He took all the responsibility. So, I can come back. And they're like, that doesn't change the fact. Yes, her dad was involved because her dad's the one that drove her to this man's hotel, which is so inappropriate. But it's also, the cons, like, do you still have a part in this? This is not okay. She starts begging to talk to the handler. They're like, hey, this is not okay. This is not regular fare. You have made him feel to the point where he feels unsafe. Now, I don't know this part for sure, but somebody said there was a bunch of people who were saying at the con they even had to, like, So I did see that they did get extra security, but they said at one point they even had to like pull him away from the booth until they got her out of the area. Now I have not been able to confirm that part, but I do know that they did have to call in extra security because of this fob. And of course, the same kind of people that excused Chris Chan raping their own mother. Yeah, when Chris Chan raped their own mother repeatedly and ended up going to prison for it, there was a lot of people who were like, "Oh, it's not Chris Chan's fault because they're autistic." That is not how that works. This is a grown adult. There were some people who were trying to say that she was a child, and a lot of people pointed out she's actually in her 20s. Like, people have confirmed this now. I can't remember her exact. It's like early 20s. She is not a child, by the way, because I know some people tried to use that as an excuse. And no, no, this is a grown woman. And it does not excuse, like, there were people who did the exact same thing with her, though. They were saying, oh, it's okay. They should just let her do that because she's autistic. It's not her fault. I hate this so much because, one, that is not how autism works. You can tell she's very intelligent. She articulated this. So she articulated finding this man's hotel room, and, like, not just the hotel, his hotel room, stalked him to that level. Her parents are a big play here too, which we'll talk about here in a second. She has been going to these conventions. She's been talked about she's been talked to about this at more than one event. After this video went viral, more came forward, where people were confirming, yes, she has done this at other conventions to this voice actor. This is stalker level behavior. This is not just autistic hyperfixation. This is criminal stalker behavior. She is putting this man in danger. Her autism has nothing to do with that. And there are so many people who infantilize autistic people so much that they try to use it as a get out of jail free card and be like, oh, well, they're autistic. Okay, if I go out and I murder somebody, are you guys going to say it's not my fault because I'm autistic? No, you're not, because that's not how autism works. And it not only infantilizes autistic people, which I could do an entire, like, 4 hour, I'm not going to, but, like, I could do a whole entire 4 hour podcast if somebody wanted to, on just statistics and records and studies that have been done proving how bad infantilization of autistic people affects us and how we get services, and you know, how we're treated and how it is in the workplace and all of these things. But on top of that, it makes people afraid of autistic people. There are people who genuinely see situations like what happened with this vlog and what happened with people like Chris Chan and what happens with Nova Online, and they see people saying, and it's somebody typically who's never been around somebody who has autism, so this is the only information they're getting. And because I know sometimes the internet makes it seem like everybody has autism, but it's actually still very, very small percentage of people. It's just when you see it a lot online because people are talking about it, it can make it seem like there's a lot more people than there is. As for diagnosed autistic people, there's not that many, but there's a lot of people who've never met an autistic person. And all they see is media portray, and then things on social media with people, like I said, Nova Online, Chris Chan, this particular flob, that's what they see, and they see people saying, oh, they're autistic, so it's okay. And that's what they think autistic people are. They will genuinely be afraid of autistic people because of these stereotypes. It is so harmful to us. It's just like there are so many people who will falsely say that they're severe, when they're not. Like, the fact that you can have a conversation with me and tell me that you're severe, automatically red flag, because if you look up the actual standards for severe, less than 20% of autistic people are actually severe and diagnosed as severe, because the qualifiers for that are, the easiest way to put it is, if you've ever met somebody who has a child, or they're the guardian of somebody who's severe, because somebody who's severe is never going to be able to take care of themselves. They will be dependent on others until the day they pass away. And that is the standard for diagnosis, that they will never be independent. They will be dependent on others till the day they pass away. It is considered amazing if they can do even certain basic tasks themselves. Like, with it, guardians of people who are severe will even, like, praise how they are so excited when the autistic person that is severe, that they're taking care of, is able to eat on their own. Like, that side of the spectrum is extremely rare, and it is very heartbreaking. But also, if you're able to articulate stalking somebody, you're not on that side of it. There's a lot of confusion, I think, because, one, people just saying that they're severe when they're not. Like if you're severe, you're never allowed to have a driver's license. You never allowed to live independently. You can't work ever. And like I see people who are like, oh, I had to get a job because I couldn't do anything. I didn't have any money to pay my bills. And I'm like, yeah, somebody who's severe couldn't work even if it was going to make them homeless. They would have no choice because they could not physically work. They're nonverbal. They speak from other ways. Like sometimes it is considered a huge accomplishment whenever they can learn something like sign language or type stuff out. And it's really sad to see like the amount of people who do not understand the difference there. But there's also a large issue where sometimes when children are little, when they're still small enough, they will get marked moderate to severe. And what happens there is when they're moderate to severe, with enough proper resources, and they get diagnosed early as a child and they get those resources, they can get into the level twos, and sometimes in some cases even get down to a level one. It is amazing. But there are so many parents who will hear the word moderate to severe and they seem to only hear severe and then tell everybody, even when they're older and it's very clear that they've made their way down to a level two, they'll be like, oh no, they're still severe. It's like, no, they're not. Please stop holding back your kids. Like I said, anybody who has an autistic child, I beg you to go watch the Temple Grandin movie. And if you have a lecture with her, if there's because she still does lectures to this day, she's still alive. She's amazing. I've met her multiple times. If you ever get a chance to sit in one of her lectures, listen to it, because her mother is the prime example of what autistic parents, the parents of autistic kids, sorry, should do. I mean, she does amazing work. Temple Grant was one of the ones who was originally moderate to severe. Her mother was told, hey, go put her in a home. That's what they told her. And she was like, oh, just put her where to state. And her mom said, no, we're going to figure out how to get her. She didn't speak till she was almost 5. And look at her now. She's got 2 PhDs. I'm not saying that like every single person that's got that diagnosis is going to, go out there and get multiple PhDs and stuff. But they have a chance to be able to do some things. Like, it doesn't mean give up on them. I see so, it's so depressing because I see so many parents. God, I want to rip my ears out when I hear them go, oh, well, they're severe, or they're autistic, so we're not going to try, or they can't do that because they're autistic. It's not that they can't do that. It's they need the opportunity to learn to do it their way. Maybe they got to do it a different way. Like I said, my friend's kid has made strides a year living with me, and I mean, grades and grades and years of development because he was just given the opportunity. I wasn't some miracle worker. I just gave him the opportunity. I have another friend's kid we're doing it with right now, and she's her teacher. She's only been back in school for a couple of days. And my friend already called me. She's in the 6th grade. She was like, oh my gosh, like the teacher already called and said, what did you guys do over the summer? And I'm like, we just did the work. Anyways, I'm sorry to get on a tangent on that. But yeah, there's a lot of people who were trying to say, oh, well, she's autistic, so it's okay that she stalked. But she's been apparently gone to multiple cons, multiple events with this man. This is not her first time stalking him. She has been warned. She is very articulate. This flaw planned out and was managed to stalk this man enough to figure out where his hotel was and what room he was in and everything. It is deeply concerning, and it's just so frustrating seeing people basically lie by saying it's because of autism when it's not. Yes, there is a difference in somebody doing something because they're autistic and somebody who is doing something and they just happen to be autistic too. But we saw this same thing. We've seen it before in the past. We saw it with Chris Chan. Literally, people, while Chris Chan was being sentenced to prison for raping their own mother, people being like, oh, but she's autistic. That has nothing to do with it. But parents do play. The reason I brought the parents up is this Flob's parents also play a role because her dad drove her to that hotel. And the fact that her dad tried to take the rap for her so that she could continue to stalk this man is a huge issue. Because sometimes these autistic adults, you end up finding out, you're like, wow, someone's behavior, like, and you find out it's because their parents enabled them in childhood. And these parents definitely, I don't even have to meet these parents to know they enabled her. You want to know how? Because, like I said, she tried to take the rap for her, even though they went over to the hotel. And she's even talking about how, he took the rap for her in the video. She says that, talking about, oh, my dad took responsibility for that. So basically, that's my get out of jail free card. She really thought that her dad could take responsibility for her bad behaviors and she'd get out of it. And that is a very big tell for how she was parented. It's just like this spoiled brat kind of syndrome. She has been taught that, oh, mommy and daddy can take the rap for it and I can get away with whatever I want. And that's just not how the real world works. Her parents have definitely failed her in that department. The fact, I'm telling you, if my kid came up to me, because I have an autistic child. If he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, can you drive me to the hotel that this voice actor is staying at or celebrity staying?" I'd be like, "Fuck no. What the heck is wrong with you?" If they, especially if he had came up to me and been like, "Hey, so I already know the hotel room. I stalked this man enough to know exactly what room he's in. Can you take me over there to stalk him?" Yeah, I'd be like, "Fuck no. We're going to get you some help." And if you are new to my page, I mean, if you weren't on my page like a couple of years ago, before I had GameStop stories, I did cosplayer stories, convention stories, and I still have that list up. It's Cosplayer Nightmares, that playlist, and there are follower submissions and submissions of mine. I used to talk in first person because that was a trend back there. You'd always tell the stories in first person, and then you put in the caption, "Hey, by the way, this is a follower story." But then I had people who were like, "You're lying. None of this happened to you. This happened to somebody else." I'm like, yeah, it's a follower submission. No fucking shit. I'm like, that's what follower submission means, dude. It was there's still people to this day that do that. They tell it in a first person thing. That's why now I make sure I always say follower submission so the idiots don't leave the rude comments being like, "You're lying." It's like, no. And no, I mean, here's the thing is at the end of the day, when you tell any kind of follower submissions, even when you have photos or video, somebody can manipulate, whatever the case is. You're going to have some people that over exaggerate when they send in their story times, just like every single Reddit reading story ever. Every single page that reads any follower submission stories or Reddit stories or internet stories, there's always that risk. I'm sorry about the hiccups. And dude, I don't care what people say about me. I mean, I have an entire playlist disproving people to the point where they just started making up shit, some of it not even fucking physically possible because I kept having proof that they were lying, so they just had to start, making up shit because they used to do the whole thing of cropping videos and lying about the context, and then people finally got smart and started going and seeing the videos and being like, "Oh wait, no, that's not what happened. This person lied." It's like, yeah, no shit. Um, but I fucking Christ. I cannot stand when people are rude to my followers. That's a whole other situation. Like when people leave rude comments, whatever. I'll be like, "Thanks for boosting my video. Maybe it'll, since you don't have the common sense, maybe it'll boost the video and somebody with common sense can go appreciate it." But when they start getting rude to my followers, especially if they get rude in the comments, dear Lord, I have to fight the urge to not lose my freaking, especially my mutuals and stuff. I have to not lose my account for account strikes for telling them where they can shove it. Like, buddy, you can say whatever you want to me and make up whatever the fuck you want, but you do not come for my followers. That's a whole nother fucking situation. And it's going to end with me getting an account strike for telling you exactly what you need to hear about your damn self. Speaking of me cussing people out in autism, if you have not seen the situation with Bo, I'm very shocked that that video stayed up because I said a lot of choice words. We're calling her Jennifer the Jackass. Get your tissues because this one's really sad. If you've not seen, there is somebody who Bo. He is in the moderate to severe. Because his brother reached out to me. His brother is, I think, said 28 or something. I have to check. He's in his mid 20s. One of the 5 kids she has. But yes, there is a woman. Her name is Jennifer the Jackass. Her full name is Jennifer Ann Tumley, sorry. I had to double check that one. She's from Forks, Arkansas. Her maiden name is Wood. Her husband's name is Christopher. You can call the the Arkansas CPS if you would like, even though a lot of us already have and submitted these videos. But if you're unaware, the other day, she they were going to go see this like park movie, and she abandoned her child, her autistic child, her moderate to severely autistic child, because he was having a meltdown and she didn't feel like dealing with him. And he apparently walked for over 15 minutes too, crossed 4 lanes of traffic, just trying to figure out his way home because she literally got in the car and drove off. And this sweet woman approached him, possibly saved his life because there's a lot of people came out that are like, "Hey, so I'm in that area. It's a really bad area." Also, special needs children are at one of the highest victim groups. There's actually a lot of predators who will specifically target special needs children because they can't always articulate what happened to them or process it, and it's easier for them they're easier to manipulate and stuff. That's how predators look at them. But yes, Bo, he was abandoned. He is, when he's on video, he's shaking, he's crying. Like, I mean, he's not fully crying, but you can see he's starting to swell up. You can tell by his body language, he's shaking up. He's terrified. And he's talking about, yeah, his mom abandoned him. They just left him there. That's why he was trying to figure out his way home. Well, that video blew up, and by the sweet angel of a woman who stopped to help him and was like calling to try to get help before something bad happened to him. And what ended up happening is the mom saw the video and started lying, which did not go well. She started lying. She made like 3 different videos, and then she deleted her entire account. She kept deleting the videos and posted a new one. There's several people who have reposted the videos, but including the one where she changes her story multiple times. First, her excuse was that she had 5 kids, so it wasn't her fault that she accidentally abandoned them. And then I told my story about, yeah, I don't have 5 kids, but I was watching 5 kids, including 3 special needs at one point, and like, I never lost it. I made sure you do head count. I have an aunt. We've talked about Aunt Lynn on here before. The Garrisons. That's my great aunt. Out of the DFW area, and they were also in the New Orleans. Hurricane Katrina's how they ended up DFW, but she's got over a dozen. There was a point where she had like 22 kids in her house. She also takes in missionaries and stuff. And there might be an accident where you forget for 2 seconds, but then you get to the car, you do a head count and go, crap, I gotta run back again. That's not what happened here though. She abandoned him. And she tried to change her story multiple times. She even made him come on, and you can tell that it is the most rehearsed shit ever. Made him come on, and that's what one of the siblings was saying in the I believe it's a sibling or cousin, I can't remember, was saying in my comments too, was saying that it was rehearsed. But you can also just tell by watching the video it's rehearsed. Making him make this video being like, I don't appreciate being recorded. Dude, yeah, he saw the camera. He looks into the camera several times whenever this was being filmed. It's just he was trying to back up his mother, and then he's like going on about how his mom's so amazing. You could tell she made him say that. Well, she tried those lies for a while, and then a family member leaked some messages, her private messages, where she admits that she did in fact abandon him, like we all said, and like he said in the first time. She did in fact abandon him, and she was doing it because he needed to learn a lesson, according to her. You know what? I vote that we take her to my home state of West Virginia, up to Point Pleasant, where Mothman is, in the middle of the night, and we drop her off in the middle of the freaking woods and tell her to figure out her way home, and because she's the one that needs to learn a fucking lesson, you jackass. I swear there's some days I will log into TikTok and I'll see amazing things that will give me so much hope in humanity, and then the next moment there's something that makes me have no faith in humanity anymore. I do have faith in the fact that this woman, the sweet woman who posted the original, helped and stopped and helped this poor child, and all the people that have been in the comments and found her name and everything to call CPS. Also, I think I accidentally said Arkansas earlier. I meant Arizona. I'm sorry, folks, Arizona. If you don't have something to write that down with and you want to call CPS to help, because the more calls the better, you can actually go on to my TikTok page. I have a video where I explain everything in detail. I give you the exact number to call and all of that. Something that does really scare me about this is people pointed out that this was probably not her first time doing this. There's a family member that came in and was saying that that was somebody who couldn't confirm if that actually was a family member with that person. But with the way he was talking, it did seem like it. And a lot of people said, oh, this person's getting views off of posting, and they're posting awareness. It is very important to post stuff like that, because what ended up happening is they think twice about it, because this is really sad to think about, but there are parents out there who care more about being publicly humiliated than they care about their child's safety. So her getting publicly humiliated is making her think twice about it, because she clearly cares more about that, the way she was trying to make up excuses and stuff. And it can also make it so other people will think twice before doing it, because there's parents that might think twice. They see somebody else being publicly humiliated about it, they might think, oh, maybe I shouldn't do it, which they shouldn't do it in the fucking first place. You shouldn't abandon your kids in the first place. But, there are, like I said, unfortunately, there's some parents that really do just care more about their public image than their actual kids. So whatever it takes to get people to treat their children better. In other plob news, stop eating before I tell you this one. If you've not seen the emergency room crossover story with the GameStop worker, you're in for not a treat. I'm sorry that I can't hand you an emotional squish through this audio, because this one's going to get really gross. If you did not see this earlier this week, I posted a follower submission that was sent to me from a GameStop worker who is currently a GameStop worker. This is the second current GameStop worker I've had this week's story time. But the current GameStop worker sent in a story about a former coworker that they had at GameStop, and it somehow ends up being a trauma or a crossover too. So this poor GameStop worker had an incel plob she was working with. Typical, the same story we've heard a million times with this guy, with the smelling and the not bathing and not wanting to talk to women, and talking about how women shouldn't be allowed to work, especially at GameStop, unless they're supposed to be eye candy and all this shit, right? He also regularly talked about how he had never been with a woman. He had never been on a date or had a girlfriend or anything. He'd never been able to He's always complained about how, it's Femoid's fault that he couldn't get a woman and a blah, blah, blah. Well, dumbass over here gets a not so smart idea on how he's now going to get a woman to touch him, and it backfires. So keep in mind, this man does not bathe, he does not wash his clothes, a lot of grody-ness going on. Typical pleb incel behavior. So one day he comes to work, and he's walking a little funny. And she is like, okay, maybe. And he's bragging about how, he's got, finally got a woman to touch him or whatever. And she's like, okay, well, maybe he got pegged or something. Like, why is this man walking like this? He's walking like a freaking penguin. He does this for a couple of days, and then he has a couple of days off. And then they get a call on his day when he was supposed to return, and says, oh, I'm in the hospital. And they're like, what the fuck? At this point, they're concerned about him. They're like, oh my gosh, what happened? He's off for a few days. They don't know what's going on. They're deeply concerned for this guy at this point because they just know he's in the hospital. And they're like, damn, he's an asshole. But like, still, what's wrong with it? He was walking funny, and now, like, oh gosh. Until he comes back to work and tells them, you know why this man was in the hospital? Because dumbass decided the way to get women to touch him, and also to force a woman to touch his penis, was to get a female piercer to give him a Jacob's ladder. If you don't know what that is, so the Prince Albert is the one that goes on the head. The Jacob's ladder is the one that goes on the shaft, and it is multiple bars through the shaft to create a ladder. You actually have to be erect the entire time, and I'm not trying to judge anybody, but damn, how do y'all do that? Because I couldn't imagine, like, you literally have to be erect the entire time. You're having multiple bars shoved through your dick. It doesn't happen all at once. It's one after the other. And I'm like, damn. But yeah, so he had done that, and then he put his nasty grody. He did not get any aftercare. The woman had tried to get him aftercare, and he said that, well, in his words, the woman tried to scam him by the piercer tried to scam him by trying to get him to buy some cleaning kit when he knew that the penis was self-cleaning. First of all, the penis is not self-cleaning. Please do not fucking think that. That is not true. The penis does not self-clean. Dear God, that's so fucking gross that he thought this. But he was convinced that the penis was self-cleaning for whatever fucking reason. I don't know where he got that information from. But he is convinced of it, so he thought that the woman that did his piercings was, but just trying to scam him by selling the cleaning stuff. Now that I'm thinking of it, that might be how he was able to stay hard for the piercing, since he'd never been touched by a woman before. Maybe like just being touched by a woman for the first time. Lord, I'm so glad he didn't accidentally like come on her or something, because I've heard some horror stories about that. I have a friend whose dad is a piercer, and talked about how a guy one time came on him whenever he did a Prince Albert. Anyways, so he had put his nasty grody underwear back on these multiple open wounds on his penis, because that's what they are. Piercings are open wounds. I've got piercings myself. They are open wounds. I don't have any down there, but like, you know what I mean? But yeah, he put those nasty grody underwear that he doesn't wash, didn't bathe for days, and it got infected. The wildest part of this whole fucking story is after he gets out of the hospital, gets able or cleared to go back to work or whatever. Because I know he had, like, after he got out, he was like written to have a couple extra days off too. From what she said. So he comes back. This happens. He explains what happens, and he makes it seem like it's the piercer's fault. Like, he kept saying the piercer must have done something wrong, and they're like, no, that's not, you're nasty grody ass. Because the reason why they know is, like, he turned in the, like, when he turned in his doctor's note, for some reason, he also turned in his discharge papers. Like, the manager was like, okay. And they glanced over at him because he handed him to him. He told him, oh, just keep him, because his manager was even like, I don't need these. I just need the doctor to. He's like, no, just keep it. I don't want to have to bother with it. So hand him the whole thing. He skimmed through it and saw, yeah, that it was infected and all that from lack of cleaning and stuff. But this guy then ended up getting fired later for sexual harassment on customers, because after he got it pierced. Now, we do not know if he had to remove it or not. I'm pretty sure he did. I'm 99. Like, as somebody's worked in trauma ER, I can tell you, you're getting the piercing removed unless somebody's failing at their job, if it's that bad. But he apparently went around bragging to females, to women, being like, women customers, and being like, hey, I'm so tough, I'm so strong, I got this Jacob's ladder for her pleasure, and blah, 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 blah. And was trying to get women to hook up with him because of that. They ended up getting fired for sexually harassing customers. But like, Jesus Christ, man, I just want to know what mindset was this motherfucker going through? That he was like, yeah, I'm gonna get laid, I'm gonna lose my virginity, getting a fucking Jacob's ladder piercing and then not fucking cleaning it and thinking that's a flex to women. It's not. It really isn't. And an infected dick piercing is not a flex to women. That is the quite the opposite. That is the red flag. Like, I have seen some things, and not just men, I've seen women too do some insane shit to try to get partners. And y'all just be your fucking self. I always joke, and I'm like half serious, that I need to make like a podcast or a dating thing, do dating advice for, because I'm actually really good at it, with giving dating advice to men. I don't know why. I just fucking am. I guess I just use common sense in my experience with women for men, and I need to actually do that. I need to finally sit my ass down and actually do it. Because I will say, the one thing that I actually do lie about is my fucking timelines. Because I'm the world's biggest procrastinator. I'm gonna get to it at some point, but if I say tomorrow, it's probably gonna be like a week. If I say next week, it's probably gonna be a month. I am so bad about it. I have had the video for the Christian shit sitting there for like a month now. I've got both the Chris Chan's arrest, the cop footage, and I've got my reaction, and it's just, I still, for a month now, I just trying to get that crap lined up. Especially because of all the trolls, I have actually gotten to a point where I am almost, I think I'm like 1,000 hours of watch time away on YouTube from finally getting monetized, and then we can start working towards getting money on there to open up a Veterans Crisis, a local Battle Buddies chapter here, because Lord, does this area need it? What's funny about the troll situation, I actually made a new YouTube friend, a new buddy that does YouTube. I had never heard of him before. He reached out to me because he was like, "Hey, I don't know if you know this, but this is exactly how Danky manipulated that video." And I'm like, "Yeah, I already know." He downloaded it first, edited it in that software, and then came on and said, "Look, if I turn the volume up," it's like he even did the thing that a lot of manipulators do, is they'll test how far they can go with manipulating somebody, because he mentions in it how like how similar AI is, and how good he is at editing. He's bragging and rubbing it in people's faces just to see how far, like how much control he has. Like, manipulators do that. He also uses the 5 to 15 method, which is I don't want to go into too much because I don't want to give other people, like, I mean, you can also just look up this manipulation technique, but I also don't want to like encourage bad behavior. But it's a manipulation technique over the course of 30 minutes to an hour. You subtly hint at something 5 to 15 times. You space it out a certain amount so it gets in somebody's subconscious. And then when you show them something, they're more likely to see or hear what you just said. Just like, you'll see pictures and multiple people see different things depending on, the clouds and that, like they'll show a cloud and you see a certain thing. If they've subconsciously planted that 5 to 15 times over the 30 minutes to an hour, you're more likely to see that. Just like if you see it, sometimes you'll see these audios on TikTok that'll have 5 sentences or so on the video, and it'll, depending on which one you're reading, what you hear, even though it's the exact same audio every time. But yeah, apparently somebody else who has called out Danky in the past, who's actually like a decently sized YouTuber, was like, "Hey, yeah, so we've had issues before. He's really bad at manipulating his fans. Yes, he's friends with that," which I already knew. I already knew he was friends with that because some of the lies he was saying. The fact that he's now deleted that live too, where he got caught red-handed, seeing proof, and got red-handed contradicting himself, and then at one point he even admits on the live, after just saying he didn't do it, admitting that yes, he made fun of my volunteer work in domestic violence and just all that shit. But the guy reached out to me, and he has been really nice. He offered me help with like recommendations on like audio stuff, which are not audio, video YouTube editing stuff, and like tools that he uses. And he's like, "Yeah, I use this now, but like this is great for beginners," which I've had a lot of creators, like I said, I have almost 1,000 mutuals. I have a lot of large creators who have given me that stuff, but I really appreciate this guy because a lot of my mutuals will be like, "Yeah, this and this and this," and I'm like, "Buddy, I really need something beginner friendly. Like, I really suck at software. Like, I really do. I'm not just being like, oh, I'm a little slow at it. No, no, I really, really suck at it. It's taking me, once I pick something up, I'm great at it, but it's taken me a lot longer." So he actually sent me some real beginner stuff that like is actually helpful. It doesn't sound like another language because I feel like a burden. I feel bad whenever somebody offers me advice and it's just so complicated. I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks." And when realistically, I'm like, "I don't understand a word you just said." To circle back to the piercing story for a moment, though, I had completely forgotten about this until after I posted the video about it on TikTok, and one of my former coworkers reminded me of this. This is also your reminder, if you get one of those piercings to, especially if you get like a Prince Albert or something where the beads are close to the head, or if you are a woman and you get something down there, to always make sure that the beads, the thing that screws on, I can never remember the actual name of it, the little ball that screws on it, is on there 1000%. And the reason that is so important is because you don't want your piercing ball to go somewhere that it shouldn't. If you're a guy, you don't want it to turn into a sounding rod. And if you're a woman, you don't want it to go inside of there because it is so small, it can get into the lining and everything. We actually had a woman who, oh gosh, she had oh Lord, sorry, just thinking about getting this piercing, just, once again, I'm not judging anybody off of it. It just, who, not something I could do. It's the one that goes through your clit, and she had been having intercourse, and she had the ball come off at some point during the intercourse. It come off, and it went inside of her. Now the guy is doing what he's doing, and ended up shoving it into her wall lining. She ended up going to the ER. She had to have surgery to get it removed because it was so bad. I mean, not surgery. She had to have a day procedure, basically, because she had to be sedated for it. So it wasn't like surgery. They didn't have to like cut her open or anything like that, but they did have to sedate her from the pain to like get it cut out of her. So please, if you're gonna get any kind of genital piercing, make sure that the ball stays on. Like right now, my belly button piercing does not have the ball on the top of it because it came off at some point. But at least I know it's not somewhere it don't belong, and also the piercing I have stays like pretty decent, so I'll just find a ball for it later. But yeah, if you're gonna get any kind of genital piercing, please be so fucking careful. I remember when that happened with that woman, and I had so many nurses telling me stories, being like, "Oh yeah, I've heard, I either experienced this, or I had a friend that had this, or I had." It's unfortunately very common for people with piercings down there to have incidents. Oh gosh, it's just, especially men with the Prince Albert. Apparently, it's very common. Like the ball will somehow get in their pee. I'm like, oh, how? But also your reminder that I'm sure. I guess I mean, so I'm sure there's people out there that I know it's a fetish for people have fetishes for people have piercings down there. But if you're trying to get laid, that maybe you try some like real dating advice first before you go out and get an open wound on your genitalia. I mean, if you're doing it because you want to do it, that's fine. But if you're doing it to impress the other gender, come on, or even the same gender, whatever your preference is. Also, I apologize if you hear a weird noise in the background. It is my cricket going. My kids' first days of school tomorrow, so I'm printing off the stuff to put on their backpacks. I know I procrastinated. I kept being like, I'm gonna put their names on their backpacks. And then it's now the night before, and I'm finally getting to it. I got all their school supplies and stuff like weeks ago, though. I just kept forgetting about this. I also had to go get headphones. That's the other thing I forgot. It drives me nuts that for the schools they have to have very specific plug-in headphones, like the type. They have to have the like little converter for their school, so it can't be like the regular plugins. It has to be USB. I don't know if anybody else's kids' school did that, but it's the most biggest pain in the butt trying to find kids' headphones that have USB. So I just got converters. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I also have an insane amount. I have 11 alarms set for in the morning because I just get so paranoid with the first couple of days of school that I'm gonna oversleep. I used to do that when I was in school too. Like for years, never slept the night before the first day of school because I was so scared I was going to be late. I don't know if this part of the podcast would be considered plob or just human pieces of shit. But we need to address the Roblox situation. If you have not seen, Chris Hansen, and yes, it has been confirmed, Chris Hansen is doing a documentary on Roblox. Originally, there was a rumor, and then JD, if you don't know JD Blake, amazing man, we're mutuals, great guy. It's so funny because so many people tag me in his videos and him in mine. The poor guy's probably tired of it. He's probably like, why am I like, why am I constantly getting that? But I mean, he knows why. But he confirmed because he's friends with Chris Hansen, and he's even done a episode series with Chris Hansen catching pedophiles. But Chris Hansen is doing a documentary on Roblox, and it is so frustrating seeing, if you're in the gaming community, you know that Roblox has been outed for years. There have been lawsuits, there's been so many cases. Every single one of these pedophile hunters online has caught at least one Roblox player at some point because it is such a bad issue. They even have a game on there called Escaping Epstein Island. But it is so sad seeing the amount of parents who are pretending they didn't know. And being like, oh, I'm so shocked that this is happening. My kid's been playing Roblox for years. And here's the thing is if you let your kid play in the very beginning, that's one thing you didn't know. But if you've been letting them play in the last year or so, even with everything that's came out, especially with that Epstein Island game and the lawsuits and they're everywhere. It's everywhere. You cannot escape it. You can't you if you're saying that you didn't know, you're a lying piece of shit. You just don't want to admit that you let your kids continue to do this shit after all that outing. And then there's also people who will be like, "Oh, but I turned off the chat log feature." That doesn't mean shit. Do you know how many times people's there have been kids that this is part of the lawsuit issue with some of the shit that's happened is them getting hacked and being able to get on and their friends at school teaching them ways around it and their cameras getting hacked and shit, and kids being able to be seen in the bathroom, all kinds of horrific shit. But there's still the parents who, now that Chris Hansen's talking about it, are pretending to be shocked. Oh, this is crazy news. Nobody saw this coming. The entire gaming community has been telling you for years. Lawsuits. There's even commercials. If you're scrolling through Facebook, I was scrolling on Facebook videos, because they have episodes of Call the Midwife on there. I know I need to just watch the show, but I'm so bad about procrastinating it. But they have episodes on there and I'll be watching and it'll be another ad for, hey, was your child groomed in Roblox? Here's another lawsuit that's happening. The creator recently, the whole team ended up kicking off and banning a pedophile hunter off of Roblox for getting pedophiles on Roblox arrested. And that should tell you everything you need to know about them. And what's crazy is I made a video about this, and I've had 2 children now, one a 14-year-old and one, I don't know how, but it was clear it was a child by the way of typing, being like, "Oh, well, you can just let your, turn off the chat feature or something, it's not that bad. Just teach your kids not to talk to strangers. Shut the fuck up." I didn't say that to them because they're children. I just blocked them. But it's like, dude, there is no excuse. There is no excuse at all for your child to be on Roblox, especially with the creators now outing themselves as how they will kick off predator hunters and allow predators on there and show their, like I said, the Epstein Island video game too. Like the fact that they have a game for Epstein Island is very telling. But it is so depressing seeing it's once again a prime example of in the gaming world how there are predators. We talk about plobs all the time and predators and that plobs that fall into the predator category. And the fact that there are so many parents who allow their kids in spaces that they should not be allowed in or should not be unsupervised in or whatever the case may be. It's like when any GameStop worker, you can ask anybody who's ever worked at GameStop, they've had at least one of these customers where a parent will come in and try to buy a game for their like 5 or 6-year-old that's rated M, and you're like, hey, so this is rated M for a reason. And they're like, oh, but he wants it. Let me just give it to him. And then they come back and cuss you out because, oh my gosh, I didn't know it had this in it. And it's like, we told you. Why are you cussing me out? It's your fault for failing as a parent. Like, we told you it was rated M and you shouldn't buy it for your kid, and you still bought it for your kid because he wants it. Now you're coming back to the store cussing me out for selling it to you. And it's like, dude, what did you want me to do? You want me to come to your house and parent for you? I can't do that. You need to fucking do it yourself. You're a parent. You are the parent. You got to do this stuff. And what frustrates me about is a lot of people pointed this out in the comments too of that video I posted. We are the generation, like my generation, and I know I'm on the edge. I'm what's considered as a millennial because my birthday is literally November 27th. That is how close to the millennial Gen Z line I am. But we grew up with this technology. We are the generation, we don't have that excuse like Gen X had where they didn't grow up with all this technology regularly in the house. We did, though. We lived through Yahoo Messenger. We lived through the OG World of Warcraft. We lived through the RuneScape stuff. We lived through AOL, Kick, all of it. We know my yearbook. Oh God, does anybody remember my yearbook? Power Pets, all of it. We lived through the OG stuff. We know how bad these predators are. We know it's gotten worse. So there's no excuse to be like, well, I'm technology illiterate like boomers and stuff had. Boomers and Gen X and stuff had these excuses because they didn't grow up with this technology. But we grew up with it. We know that it's there. We know that there's problems there. So there's no excuse for people in my generation to be allowing this kind of stuff with their kids. Now, I am not one of those people that's like, no screen time at all. But I'm also one of those people I am like, hey, you need to monitor what your kids are watching and playing on, There's nothing wrong with, learning games or, after they've done all their chores, letting them play little like basic games. Like my son plays this game with my mom. It's like a little dragon egg game. There's no chat logs or anything like that, and you have to do friend requests for approvals, and you have to have everybody's code and all that stuff. So He plays that with my mom and stuff. Like, there's nothing wrong with screen time as long as it's responsible screen time. That's the difference. Honestly, the no screen time parents kind of scare me because when you don't allow any screen time, they're going to get screen time at some point. They're going to go to school. Technology, they have Chromebooks and stuff in school now. Like, it's technology regularly used. And that's what scares me is if you never let them have technology at all and you're like, no screens at all. What happens when they go to school or they go to a friend's house or something or somebody's babysitting and they don't know how to navigate, then they're more susceptible because they've never been on it and they're just thinking, oh cool, new technology, I'm not on it. Like, you got to find that good medium. Lord, it's just depressing. That's the easiest way to sum the whole Roblox situation up. It's depressing seeing people freaking still allowing their kids on that app with all of the risk and everything. Just in morals alone, man, that the fact that they, have the creators have very much shown their morals, and are still allowing this. You should not be. So there's so many other games out there. It's thousands of games you could do instead. But like I said, every GameStop employee, every game store worker has encountered those parents before where they're like, oh, I don't care that I was rated M, or I don't care that's unsafe. I'm going to blame everybody else when my kid gets traumatized instead of having personal accountability. While I am going to end this podcast a little bit early, just because, like I said, first day of school's tomorrow. And don't worry, we are going to get that interview redone. Me and Hayden are going to get it redone. That we're going to figure it out so that it will be up on Thursday. There's one last thing I want to remind people of because this apparently went over a lot of people's heads, and I did not realize how many people missed the whole point of the new movie Weapons that came out. So if you haven't seen Weapons, don't worry, I'm not gonna do like any real spoilers, but I have posted a couple of videos making jokes about certain things because there's a couple of scenes that they do make it a little bit comical. Like the ending scene people were talking about. It's one of these mixtures of you dive deep of like how fucked up the ending scene is, but at the same time it's kind of funny. The way the way they put it out. But also, a lot of people were like, why is it called Weapons? Why isn't it called this or that? Also, there's a scene where they show a giant AK and it says 217 on it. And they're like, what was the point in that? Like, the whole rest of the movie, it didn't make any sense. And it does make sense because the entire movie is about school shootings. So 217 and the AK, the reason they show the particular weapon is that is the weapon that the Parkland shooter used. The Parkland shooting took place the second month of the year, February, and 17 victims. That is why they had 17, kids go missing, which that's not a spoiler. That's in the commercial. But the entire movie is a metaphor for school shootings. The reason why it's cutting to different scenes is it in like different people. So like throughout the movie, it cuts around a lot. Where it's showing different people's perspective, and it is to show the perspective of how a town handles after a school shooting. You see the rage, the grief, the drinking, the cheating, the stress, just all of this craziness that's going on. They also, with the lack of investigation, there was a lot of people who were like, why did the dad figure that out, but the police didn't figure this out? They're all running. Why didn't nobody check to see what direction they're running? It's to talk about how also in America we have a big problem with the lack of investigation. I mean, keep in mind, 55% of homicides in the US go unsolved forever. Like, they never get solved, which sounds like a very scary number, but what's crazy is that's actually a low number considering history-wise. It used to be a lot more a few decades ago, but we've come forensics and DNA and all of that. But the entire movie, while it does have, a few horror jump scenes and stuff, the whole thing is supposed to be a metaphor for school shootings and like all the things that go through with that. At the ending when he talks about, one of the kids is finally talking and the other parents end up in a ward and all that stuff. That is, talking about how messed up people are after having to cope and deal with something like that. But I just wanted to add that it is a good movie. I recommend going to see it. But that is important to keep in mind because I've seen so many people who are very confused about the movie. They're like, what was with the AK and why was it called Weapons? When this movie's about, I'm not going to spoil it, but they're like, but it's because it is a whole metaphor. Like, that's two school shootings. That's why they do the 217 because the Parkland, the 17 students, all of that. It's about school shootings. Speaking of, if you see, which, oh God, this is so eerie to think about because 77 minutes is how long that a recent school shooting happened, but on say, and I'm talking Parkland and stuff, but also 77 minutes is also the amount of time that another mass shooting went on, at a McDonald's it was, oh gosh, what year was that? Hold on. 84. Sorry, I knew it was in the 80s, but I couldn't remember the year. But in 84. I do want to warn everyone because it's going around on TikTok, people talking about how the movie 77 Minutes, which is about that shooting. I know it's fucking eerie to think about how they both ended up being that same time frame. But they're talking about um how that mass shooting had people are like, oh, it's now on Tubi. This documentary, 77 minutes about the mass shooting that happened at McDonald's in 84 is out, right? For free on Tubi. Please, please, I am begging you to take the viewer discretion as advised. I would in no world let a child see that. And if you are someone who gets triggered by those situations, I would not recommend watching it because they show the uncovered crime scene photo. And if you're unaware, children and infants were murdered in that. And they do show it. I mean, 3 or 4 minutes into the movie, immediately showing the crime scene footage. It is not covered, it is not blurred, bodies are not covered with sheets. You are just seeing dead bodies of children, infants, adults, everyone. You're also going to be really pissed off, I'll tell you that right now. If you are listening and paying attention to it, the with that entire situation, there was a lot of stuff that the police force got backlash on because there was several moments where it could have stopped. It could have been stopped. The cops even got caught lying, saying it, all the killings happened the first 10 minutes, but then they found out, I was like, no, it went on for 77 minutes and there was people still getting shot at 45 and 55 and stuff, they talk, it's pretty graphic, but it's pretty rage too. Like I felt so much rage, like heartbreak and rage watching it because hearing the incompetence, like the cop at one point talking about how he's behind this vehicle and he could have turned around and shot the guy, but he's like, well, he had a bigger gun. If you know anything about firearms, you know that the fucking bigger gun was not the fucking issue. He still could have taken this man out with a handgun. But also there was a point where the one guy was at a party and he had not given the green light or whatever, like, and it took extra 30 minutes and it's just sad. The entire situation is sad. There's been a lot of backlash from the public for the people that were involved because they could have saved so many lives by, there was even one point they talked about he had a shot 15 minutes in. It was like 15 minutes into this shooting, he had a clear shot that he could have taken and did not take it and let it go on for another 77 minutes. It was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. But I just wanted to warn people because I see on my FYP so much people being like, oh my gosh, you got to go watch this documentary on Tubi. And I'm like, hey, so maybe we give some context for those of us who have seen it, just how bad this is, because it can be triggering. I mean, it is very graphic. You ain't got to have PTSD to be triggered by the stuff that's in there. I mean, and I've talked about how some people overuse the word trigger or whatever, but this one really is. Trust me, if I'm warning you about it, it's graphic. But I am going to end this just a couple of minutes early because my kids have first day of school tomorrow. That interview will be out Thursday. Okay, me and Aiden are going to do whatever it is to make sure. Sorry, I choked on my drink. But we're going to make sure it's out. But as always, remember to bathe. It's still hot outside, so make sure you're using some sunblock and keeping cool. And as always, I am getting on with any change sisters for their pleasure. Also, I have an upcoming live with a large military creator. He's got a couple million, which makes me nervous. I'm like, ooh, I was getting nervous doing live in general, but I have a live coming up. So if you see me in that, there's not going to be any plot stories in that. Well, I mean, there might be some military plot stories, but we're going to be discussing some military stuff related situations, especially after the Fort Stewart shooting just happened. So I just want to give a heads up that if somebody sees me live with him, they don't think it's going to be plot stories. He asked me to come on his channel to do alive with him about that. But everybody have a great week. And like I said, remember to shower, deodorant, drink water, and no, iced coffee does not count as water. None of it is Red Bull or any of that. Actual water.